Hey everybody, Jyotsna here, and my students like to call me Coach Joe. My purpose is to help students reach their maximum potential, which means getting into the best colleges to sort of cinch their future. And we know how important it is to have an exceptional course rigor and grades, right? And students usually struggle with harder AP courses. AP Bio, AP Chemistry, AP Stats, these are like notoriously hard APs that students struggle with. And I'm so lucky that I have Albert here. He's an expert in chemistry, and he can cook up a mean sample in the lab and help with his wonderful secret formula for success for AP chemistry and honors chemistry and anything related to chemistry. So welcome, Albert. Thank you for coming over. Please let us know what is it that you have to offer and a brief introduction.
How you doing? My name is Albert. I've been teaching chemistry for, let's call it slightly more than 20 years. I have my teaching license, master's, all this stuff that one would expect to have. As far as what I cover, I teach regular chemistry, honors chemistry, and AP chemistry. Technically, I also do college chemistry, but that's beyond the scope of this interview, I guess. Yeah, that's basically what I do.
Excellent. Excellent. And also, can you please tell us why is it that the AP chemistry curriculum is so hard?
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's difficult, right? There's no denying that. But I think it does have a bad reputation. I would argue that it's not as much difficult as takes a lot of effort. If you got into AP chemistry, you're not dumb, right? At the very least, you did fairly well in general chemistry. You got an A or a B, presumably. And so AP chemistry is, if it is difficult, it's difficult because of the very complicated wording of the questions, very much like the SAT in the math section. I remember taking the first time I took SAT math, and I was very good at math, and I did fairly badly the first time I took it because I've never seen those kind of questions before. And the algebra, there's really nothing harder on the SAT math than Algebra 1, right? But they twist the questions in such a way, if you haven't seen them before, you can get stuck pretty easily. And so once I did like 1,000 or 2,000 math questions, I never saw something I never saw before, and boom, I did very well. Very similar to that in the AP chemistry. They like to make the questions unclear. Now, as far as the actual rigor goes, yes, the AP chemistry material is certainly hard, but it's built on your already fairly decent amount of knowledge from high school chemistry. I would argue the AP chemistry exam is 80% regular chemistry and 20% the more challenging content of AP chemistry. The problem is that the questions come directly to the 20%, but if you don't understand the 80% well enough, then you're going to have a hard time.
Wow.
So we work on that.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, this is something that we didn't know. Thank you for sharing that. That was basically the format of AP chemistry. And what are the specific areas, or why is it that students particularly struggle with this?
I would argue it's very similar to the reasons people would struggle with regular chemistry. It's really all the conceptual stuff. A lot of students feel like, oh, it's the math. And there's certainly plenty of math in it, but there's really nothing harder than basic algebra. There's not even algebra 2, I would argue, right? It's really just arithmetic and very, very basic algebra 1. What makes it challenging is the conceptual stuff that If you don't understand the conceptual stuff, you're going to set up the math question wrong. Just as a quick example, if I asked you, I don't know, how many atoms of oxygen are in 10 grams of NO2, right? You can set up the math more or less right if you had general chemistry. But if you forgot that there's double the amount of oxygen for every molecule of NO2, right? Then you're going to get it wrong. You could have the best math skills in the world and you're going to get that wrong. And so the focus is definitely on understanding conceptual stuff, being able to really see it in a 3D space, all of the molecules and how they would be affected by heat, temperature, pressure, and so on. How does different concepts affect your particular question that they're asking is really important to understand.
Excellent. Excellent. I mean, there's so much that we are learning right here, right? And could you please share light about what is that unique factor, or how is your service designed to bring maximum impact, or how is it that you transform students?
Right. Well, I mean, it's all in one stop shop, right? You get an entire program. I cover every single topic that would be on the exam through Zoom sessions. But also, every Zoom session ends with me assigning a homework assignment. Very short. Don't get all worried about it. It's usually 5, at most 10 questions, just to make sure everyone understood what was taught that 1 or 2 hours, depending on the kind of program it is. And then I can instantly see by the end of the day if there's, one question that more than 20% got wrong, well, then I got to address that. And so I would either make a separate video for you, well, everyone would obviously see it, or I could address it if it's a very minor issue in the next session, or we could talk about it during office hours, which is an additional hour in the week where you could submit your own questions, or if I see a problem, I could bring it up there. And then, of course, there's a weekly quiz where I would definitely also see any problems that might come up, and we would address it there. All the videos are uploaded. And so even if for whatever reason, either you missed it or you want to look at it again, all of the videos are easily accessible to you throughout the program.
Excellent. Excellent. Wonderful. And how can parents or students get in touch with you?
So we have a web page that
Okay.
I'm sure I can pass along to you, and you can put on
Sure.
the
I
notes.
will put that along with the video to engage you. Got it. Yeah, it's like so critical that students like really take this seriously, because the AP exam is coming up, and it's always good to like brush up concepts. It's not like you need to engage an expert only when you're struggling, right? It also helps you
Mhm.
enhance your learning, and we've seen that classroom learning alone is not sufficient, right? Because there are 30 students, and augmenting it with an expert certainly helps. So I would highly recommend students looking up to Albert's AP chemistry or honors chemistry program. Okay.
Plus, I would also argue that if you did fairly well in AP chemistry, assuming that there's some weird stuff that goes on with, you can get a 5 in a chemistry exam, and depending on the school you go to, they might not be willing to give you the class as a transcript, but they're willing to give you the credits, which might not be great. But my point is, if you took AP chemistry and you really learned it, and worst case scenario, you only got the credit but not the class, well, that class, when you have to retake it, is going to be a lot easier because you already know the material. That happened to me when I got a 5 in psychology. I had to retake the class, but it
Yeah.
was fine.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. And also credits transfer to college. You're going to save a lot of tuition, right? When you transfer those credits. And some of the top colleges, they expect a minimum of 4, right? And only then they will accept the credits. So it's very important that students score well in the AP exam, right? So it's extremely critical. If you end up getting a 2, sometimes you cannot, I mean, you cannot transfer your credits. So it's also very important to learn the concepts so that you can ace the AP exam, right? Yeah. And yeah, Albert, could you throw some light into what are some of the strategies students can incorporate to ace the AP exam?
Yeah. I mean, going back to kind of like the SATs, you really need, I mean, yes, we go over through the material and obviously we're going to get you to the point where conceptually you know everything, but really what brings home the difference between a 3, a 4, and a 5 is the amount of effort, the amount of questions you complete, you go over, not just, here's the question, the answer is A, I figured it out. No, I want you to know why the answer is A. I want you to know why the answer doesn't make sense for B, C, D, right? That way, when they take the same question, because they're not that, they're kind of lazy, they give you the same question, right? But they'll change some stuff around, right? But now the answer is, let's say, D, or they reworded it in some way. Well, if you know all the letters that were the choices, then you could easily figure out the answer without too much trouble. And so I have thousands of questions that we would do before the actual exam you have to take. And so,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Albert. Any parting words before you go, your piece of advice for AP Chemistry?
Working harder is more important than being skillful at chemistry. I could take a student let's just talk regular chemistry for a second, right? I've had students where they would have an F in the class. In other words, it's a 50, let's say. And they didn't get like on the first test, but they were there, they worked, they did the homework, they asked for extra work, they asked for extra help. They would come to me whenever they had a chance. And by the end of it, they had an A. An A, not in the sense of just, one of those A's that sometimes people get, but they actually knew the material and they did very well at the end of the year exam because they put in the effort, right? Meanwhile, some people who were fairly intelligent and who probably started with an A or a B, they let themselves go. They didn't put in the effort. And maybe by the end of it, they didn't have as great as high as they wanted to have because it's the effort. It's all about effort, especially for AP chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Albert, for sharing so much valuable information about AP Chemistry. It's so important that students do academically well, right? APs are college level curriculum and college level courses. So it takes a certain amount of skill and proficiency to ace that class, right? There's things like time management, problem solving, critical thinking, creating a plan, a study plan, and everything are like super duper important because you've got to up your ante when it comes to AP courses. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all the information that you did, Albert. Thank you so much. No problem.